Alright, so this video is about finally finishing up the workbench, and you can see I've had this Chiron printer running pretty much a couple hundred hours, printing out all kinds of little adapters and mounts and stuff like that, and it's just been a wonderful machine. And here's some mounts I built for some of these one-handed clamps here. You can see I just kind of 3D printed a locating bracket so I have a location for the clamps. But on these I actually used a wood mount for that, only because they're just long and there's a lot of extra leverage if somebody should kick them or a board fall and hit them or something. So I wanted to make sure it wasn't something that would break. And I've been playing around trying to adapt these clamps to the dog holes, and I printed a couple 3D items to go on the bottom of them like that and be pinned in place, but none of them really actually worked out. I went back and forth and I just couldn't get them to work. So what I finally wound up doing is I've got some stainless steel ones that I'm machining right now, and they look like they're going to be really great. So at that point in time I'm going to break them out into another video because this one's really long as it is. So I just I spent a lot of time just cleaning up the final parts of this bench here and getting all these little brackets mounted so I could get all my clamps hung and everything. And there we are. I'm printing out another bracket to hold some of the Incra extrusions that I put dogs on, and they'll work with the thing. So you can see that printer actually is extremely accurate and does a good job. I'm real happy with it. And then at the same time, last time I left off, I still had to build the drawers for the workbench. I had, just kind of finished assembling it. So I brought in some more of my rough cut lumber, some of the short stuff that wasn't so pretty and everything, and I'm starting to just clean some pieces up for the drawer sides in this video. And actually I have 5 drawers and they're all identical to make, so that makes it really easy. It's just kind of flattening one side first on the joiner, and then just run them through the planer till I get them all down to the thickness that I actually want them. And then I'm going to go back and just square up the other edge there so I can rip them down to the widths that I need. Now you can see I'm trying to use up some of the shorter pieces of scrap and stuff that I have out in my shop. So these aren't the best of boards. And then once I get 3 sides squared up and parallel, I can go back and just rip them to width. And I do wind up wasting a lot. You can see when I use these live edge pieces, I do waste a lot. And then back over to I decided to do the front to back ones first because they're the easiest. I don't have to worry about any critical dimensions on them. I just had to cut them the 24-inch slide length, so that made it easy. So there's the drawer sides all done and ready to go, and at the same time I've still got some more 3D prints going on, and it wound up taking a lot longer than I thought, but this is for a bigger Incra extrusion. You can see how nice that bed is there. You can, as soon as it cools, you can peel everything right off, and I have not had one problem with a print lifting or anything else on it. It's just amazing. I was so used to having to use tape and the Elmer's glue and stuff like that on the other ones, where this one just works amazing, and you can see it just, everything comes out perfect. And I did get some piece of plastic to make some dogs for the bottom of my Incra stuff. And here you can really see the size difference in the holes between the bench. The one is oversized and the other one is undersized 3/4. So I still have to figure out how to remount the small ones to make them match the other side. And that was I think that's pretty bad that they would ship something like that, but that's what I got. So here I am. There's 2 brackets here for mounting the Incra parts. You can see there, and I'm just screwing them into this side. I've got double 3/4 or double 1/2 inch plywood to screw into there, so it's all pretty solid. Nothing really moves when you bound on the bench or anything. And that one's just going to sit on the bottom there, and that one there. And, these Inkwell parts did come out. They're okay for using for holding things and bench dogs. So, they're good for something in the end. Definitely not good for a stop on that miter sled. And then I had to bring in some more wood, and this is even worth looking stuff. You can see it's just pretty pieces I had cut. I usually leave them with the live edges on them just because I don't know what I'm going to do with them later. And some of these have some waves and stuff from using a dull band to cut them, so I save them for projects where I can actually cut them down shorter and not have to remove too much to flatten them. And you can see it's really, not the best lumber, but I will get good stuff out of it when I'm done. I just, do have a lot of waste, and that'll all go in the wood stove when we fire it up. And you can see this Evolution saw is still working pretty good, and it won't cut 14 inches wide, so I had to flip that. But it's been a great little saw for my shop. I don't miss the old DeWalt. And then that dust collector alarm actually works good. There it is. I just shut it off and turned on the camera because it went off. And you can see it's about, the barrel's about 3/4 full when it goes off. And, that's heavy enough for me to carry out, so I'm happy with it. And I got those front and back pieces roughed out there. You can see I did put some grooves in the sides. And now I can get all my final dimensions. And this is where you really have to be right on when you do it. If you mess up on the length of these and you've got to subtract the size for the joints and stuff, nothing will fit right with the drawer slide. So, you really have to be careful. And I have to tell you, I always cut one set first here and make sure it works. Plus, I also make an extra set of parts when I'm doing something like this. So if I mess up the first set, I can go back. And then do some setups for when I'm cutting my grooves and stuff to put them together. There you can see the first one was a little bit too deep. So I'll just keep cutting parts until I get everything set right. Then I'll lock the saw in place and the stops in place. And there it is. Once I get a perfect joint that's ready, I can cut them all and they'll, all be the same. So like I said, I've got the first one put together, and this is the true story here, whether or not it's going to work. I just try to put them in place just to make sure it's going to fit and work in every location. And luckily it does, and the bench is perfectly square and everything, so top to bottom is the same. So now I can really just start going back and cutting everything. And I like to use that little hold down when I'm cutting the grooves for the drawers also. It makes sure everything is really pulled flat and they all come out so that everything seats tight when you put the joints together. So there's the first one, and then I went back and I cut all the rest of them there. Kind of numbered them all, and then I took a black Sharpie and put a mark on the side. I had to cut the groove out for the bottom. They're all kind of keyed, so if you cut it on the wrong side, you can actually destroy a part. So I found just a sharp black Sharpie mark where you want the groove. Make sure you cut it in the right spot. And then I've got the bottom pieces for the drawers, and for these I'm using 1/2-inch plywood. I was going to use a 1/4, but it wasn't really heavy enough for my needs. And here you can see we're putting that Craig extrusion on this miter sled. It really does make a difference. I can cut a 24-inch panel with it now. Between the extrusion pulling back, being thinner than the other one, and that plastic shelf that I actually built on the front corner of my saw there to support a standard miter gauge. It actually works with this sled also. So, I'm good for 24 inches now. And best thing I ever did was put that Craig setup on it. So I'm real happy now. But there you can see that plastic shelf right there that I've got a video about putting on. That makes a really big difference if you want to get a wide cut with this thing. And you really have to adjust the guides tight too. Then I have some bench cookies. I designed and printed up some brackets here. See, again, it popped right off. And this one I was a little worried about. I figured I'd be printing a couple of them until I got it right. This is the first go around. It's just a bracket to hold the cookies, and I took a piece of pipe before I printed it, and I sliced it off, and I measured the length of it and the thickness of the wall, and I could not believe that that thing fit on there perfect like that. That Chiron printer is just so accurate. It's I'm really having a good time with that. So that's how the cookies go in there. They fit the pipe exactly, and then the little standoffs go in there. I still have to pick up 4 more of them, but this kind of gives you an idea of how it goes together. Now I just have to mirror that one part and print another one the opposite. So now I'm going to start gluing up the first drawer. You can see I fit it all together, and it fit good. And I'm using my new clamps for the first time. And I thought I would use them like pipe clamps here to just set the parts on and glue them up. And I realized that's actually the wrong way to use these clamps, and I'll show you in a little while why. But I did actually glue the plywood to the drawers, and I did put a rabbet all the way around the plywood so I have a nice surface for it to bottom out on. And then it's just a matter of really just getting glue on everything and gluing it up. And it's a really simple form of drawer that I always make, but I've never had a problem with them, so I just keep on doing it. And I really do like these new clamps here. What a difference over using pipe clamps for stuff like this. And those little glue bottles too, they were really a great investment too. You can work right on the bench. And you can see I put wax paper under the glue areas too, so I can prevent the bench top from getting glue on it. And if you notice on the left there, I've got that little orange silicone mat that I bought for the same purpose, but it's full of junk right now. So I got the first one glued up, and that's it for a little while. And then over to the jet belt sander. And this is another tool that I waited too long to buy. I just love this thing. The only thing is I still have the original belt on it that I put on when I first bought it. And I've used it for quite some time now, and it's had a lot of use. And it's been cleaned a lot, and the belt is actually needs replacing on this first drawer. So I did have to, hit it a couple times to get everything to come flat. But whenever I do these drawers, I always leave the one, corner a little bit sticking out of the long piece there, and that way you can just sand it flush and everything comes out perfect, even if you nick it with a clamp or something like that. I just changed the belt over on that for the rest of them after seeing how dull it was, and just doing a quick light final sanding on this first drawer here. And then I had to pick up another gallon of this polyacrylic. This stuff is getting hard to find anymore. It used to be you could get it at Home Depot, but they no longer sell it. So I do like this stuff though. And I'm doing some more drawer bottoms here while that's drying. And you can see I just put a rabbet all around them there to pull everything flat and lock them in place. And this 1/2-inch plywood does have some warps on it, so you really have to push it down good with those pushers while you're doing it to make sure that rabbet comes out perfect. So now that I know the first drawer went together perfect, I can go back and finish all these panels up at the same dimensions. And there you can see they'll just lock in the groove around the bottom of the drawer. And here I've got another one glued up now, and this is how I learned that I should have used the clamps. It's much easier to put the drawer together and then set them on the side. And then I've got that other piece of pipe that I had some of that dual paint that's good for plastic. It's got a plastic primer in it. And I sprayed the round part for holding the cookies. I just wanted it black, I decided. And there you can see I printed out the other side. It fit perfect. And actually I just put some glue on and glued them together now. And there's going to be 4 screws. There are 2 screws in the back and 2 on each side holding them. So, and there you can see the bench cookies fit perfectly in place, and there's room for 8 of those standoffs also. And another drawer is glued up now, and like I said, this is how you should use these clamps for drawers. Just lay the drawer on the bench and put the clamps on later. And I'm getting them all glued up in different stages now. I'm just putting 2 coats of polyurethane on them, so I'm just doing one at a time, and finishing off one and then working on the next one. And here I got a new belt on there, so it sands really nice and quick. So it does get a little bit boring when you're, doing this many of the same thing, but it doesn't really take all that long. And I made a little bracket to locate the hinge. I had to make sure that they're all exactly in the same location on the drawer to maintain the spacing. And I made a little bracket out of 2 pieces of plywood, an L-shaped bracket that I clamp in place. And then I can just set the that member of the hinge on there and locate it. And I'm just going to put I'm putting 3 screws in it now to hold it. I'm using the holes that have slots front to back for adjustment, so I can adjust all the faces of them perfectly in line when I get them in place, because those stops can be a little bit off on them. So what I did is I put 3 screws, and I did not use the screws that come with the hinges. I actually went with a much longer screw and a heavier screw, just because of the weight in these drawers. And then once everything was lined in the cabinet, lined up, I did go back and put 2 more screws in, so I have 10 screws on each drawer basically. That should hold them good. So there you can see I'm just going to the center of the slot so I can actually make some adjustment on them. And then I'll lock them down with the last 2 screws. And then these slides were really great. I was surprised they were so cheap and they work so good. It does take a little bit of force to push them in when you're, joining them together like this for the first time. Right there until the balls get pushed all the way forward. Right. And then once you do that, they're really easy to operate. They're, really smooth working, and I'm really happy with them. And then I ordered some more of that drawer liner material that I used on my router table. I was real happy with that and the way it worked and stayed in place. So I couldn't find it wide enough to fit the drawers. I could only get it 18 inches wide, I think that was. So I had to do it in 2 pieces actually. But it's easy to cut. Just take a square and one of those knife blades, and it cuts right through it. And it does stay in place good, and keeps everything from sliding when you close the doors and stuff. So I'm real happy with that, how that came out. And again, I've got drawers sitting all over now with different, number of coats on them and stuff, until I finally did get all the drawers in place. And those slides all work perfect. I have no complaints about them for being cheap slides. Then I brought in some of my small pieces of scrap walnut to do for some drawer fronts. I just wanted to put a little bit of walnut on the back of this bench. And I cut them down to the sides of the drawer front. And I've got tons of scrap now. I can't wait for the wood stove to light up. And then I just had to go back, and I decided to put a couple chamfers all the way around them. So, you can see how those little bench cookies actually are nice for holding things up off the bench, so you can, really work on things and keep it from slipping around and stuff. So they do work good with the dog bench. And then just a little bit of final sanding on them. And walnut's nasty to sand on, so I always make sure I wear a face mask with that no matter what. And a little bit of hand touch up on all the chamfers. Can't do that by machine, because then they won't line up right in the corners. So I did make a couple extra drawer fronts here, just for one for a template for the handle, and another one to cut for the top. And there you can see you know, how walnut really comes out with the finish on it. So I wound up putting 3 coats of polyurethane on the front of these with a sanding in between them because of the mechanical bonding. Then to mount the fronts on the drawers, I decided to just put a couple of the pocket hole screws in from the inside of them. I was going to use my drawer handles, but I figured that really might not be enough. So I drilled some holes, marked them off while I had the drawer out, and a little extra precaution, I got a bunch of this double-sided tape around, so I just decided to put a strip of that across the front there too. I don't know why, just to help hold things in place to keep from slipping when you're doing it. And then I went back and, like I always do, I sanded down and used Johnson paste wax on the parts before I mounted them. I didn't put any on the back side because of the double-sided tape. And then I put a 1/16 of an inch spacer on top of the lower drawer there, and I put a 1/16 of an inch spacer on the side. I have it masked and taped on there. You can't really see it. So that gives me all my drawer gaps, and you know, then it's a real easy job to put the fronts on. I'm just gonna push them in place, and you know, the tape really grabs good and holds them in place while you get a couple clamps on them there. And you know, I actually really like these little Bessie clamps too. I got some really nice, you know, clamps between these those Armor Tool clamps and these Bessie clamps now. So I've got my fill of clamps, and I'm trying to get that 1/16 spacer out of the side there, and make sure everything clears and fits right. And then I just put 3 pocket hole screws in. I started it with the driver there, and then I finally got the drill out. So it's just a matter of a couple more. Then to mount my handles, I just took that one of those extra fronts, and I made a template. I accurately drilled the whole location of the holes for where my drawer pulls are going to go, and use that as a template, and I could just clamp that on each of them and move it up so I got all the holes drilled exactly in line. And I'm just drilling a 1/4 inch hole in each of these areas because I actually decided to use some I did have some pulls I was going to put on there, but they just look funky. I decided I was going to go with something that looked like it fit, you know, in the shop, and I went with some of those hand knobs. Then I had to put a piece for the top seal on that pull-out panel for the area for the vacuum chamber there for the downdraft, and I put that in there, and I actually went back and put some foam gasketing on it later. And then at the same time, I've been selling some stuff on Craigslist to raise some money to buy new parts to rebuild my CNC router with, and these are just cheap Chinese parts that really look pretty good that I'm going to try rebuilding it with, so that'll be my next project. And then I got everything together, and it's time to go up and use that Cameo 3 to draw up and print out some little labels on there, just to, you know, add a little bit of color to it. And I'm still printing brackets. I got the last one printed up for my little Bessie corner clamp. So that's going to mount that down on the side on the bottom. And same thing, just, you know, I just printed it. It's basically, you know, just got the spots for the screws with some 1.2 millimeter walls, and the rest of it is just kind of 50% filled. And then my handles finally came for the drawer, and I wanted to make some little no-slip gaskets for behind them. Either Amazon actually lost my first shipment of them, and finally they got me out another one to replace him. I've been having an awful lot of problems with lost packages lately. And I have this old gasket punch set out in my other shop I grabbed, and I just like to use that for punching washers and stuff. And this is a adhesive backed neoprene that I had bought to put on the actual those clamp racks to keep them from slipping off. So I'm just making some neoprene washers that will compress between the back of these handles and the drawer to keep them from ever turning in the future. So I couldn't get them centered on the thread easily, so what I wound up doing was just taking a bolt with a washer on it and just slide it on there, and then just push the washer forward, and it actually came out perfectly centered. So that turned out to be the easiest way to get them on there centered. And then they just they're bolted on from the back. And when I tighten that screw coming in from the back, that actually compresses that neoprene, and it's a no-slip neoprene, so it really does, keep them from turning. So here we are, finally done. You can see everything's got like custom hanger brackets for it, built to, make it hang on there, and they've all got neoprene padding and stuff like that, so there's no vibrations when you pound on the bench and stuff. And they're all, I think they came out really nice, and everything's right, where you can reach it. And it also is, if you didn't put something back, which is my big thing. And I did pick up that mat. It's a silicone mat to protect it from glue, and I'll put a link to that down below. It's not really a good mat, but it does work. So it's a little bit thinner than what I really wanted. And you can see I've got that antique vise in there still, and put some new jaws in it, and that thing's just amazing. It opens like a foot, and it's a quick release vise, and it really does clamp good. And I've got all my drawers on the back there for things that I want to keep close to the actual bench itself. And I just put some labels on there so I remember where it is when I get older. And you can see everything really fits in there nice, and it's really nice being able to just bend over and grab something. There's all my joinery stuff, and let's see, that drawer's just got miscellaneous tools in it that I use all the time. And all my nail guns and nails and brads and pins and stuff are, right there now. And in the bottom drawer, I've got that just for little extra pieces of material I buy for future jobs that I always leave laying around and, never can find. And then that top piece there pulls out if you drop something through the bench hole, or if you got to clean it out or anything like that. That goes in, and you can pretty much see there's a seal on that surface of it now, so that whole vacuum area is sealed off. And then on the other side, I've got some of my T-track clamps here, and the bench cookies, and I still am waiting. I just ordered a couple of those dog hole clamps from Armor Tool, and I'm waiting for them to be delivered before I can design brackets for them. So that's about the only thing that'll be left to be mounted on here. And these are those Incra extrusions. You can see I took that piece of gray PVC and I turned some dog things in there to just mount on the bottom of them with the T nuts. And they're good for, they'll give me some things to clamp to and to square up to and stuff like that. So I did find a good use for them in the end. And a couple people asked me about this. It was in a picture on one of my other videos. And actually my mom had given that to me over 50 years ago, because I used to lose nails all the time when I was building tree houses. I'd hit my finger with a hammer and the nail would fall off. And then I still have some clamps to make for, these back threaded holes and stuff. But you can see I can hang a door there, or, a piece of plywood or something like that. So, still little things to finish up. So it's been a fun little build here, and I want to thank everybody for following along, and hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.